Well, hello everybody. My name is Laura. I'm from WV Art Advisory with my business partner Corey Wickersham. We put together this show called Southern Realism, and we're so grateful for Masterwork Gallery to have allowed us to do that. Masterwork Gallery is part of a nonprofit called for Artists for Christ and Community, where they raise funds through the arts to help houseless charities in Tulsa. So Cody is one of our exhibiting artists. He's a photographer, but also an art director for a local church and just a local storyteller. Everybody, when they say, oh, I know Cody, they always mention his glasses or that they are in a photograph of his. So I'm going to open up the floor to Cody so he can tell us a little bit about his background and how he got into photography. Do you want me to sit here or can I sit there?
Either way, whatever you would like to do.
Right here,
Okay.
so it's all on you.
All right. All right. Well, hello. I don't know exactly where to start, but I think since you mentioned like faith in art, I'll start there. That is why I create. That's why I do what I do. There's just I feel that inside of me, I've heard this voice that I label as something other than myself. Even if it's not, I've just since I was a little boy, because of my cultural context and my family of origin, I was given the story of God and given the story of Christ. And so as a kid, whenever I would hear this deeper voice that felt different than my own thoughts and the way that I would see the world, I would label that as God speaking to me. And then now in my adult life, I'm 36 years old, I work in the Christian church, and I do believe that. I still believe that even though I was handed this story, and I'm very fortunate to be handed this story, it's lined up with my lived experience, and that in my lived experience, there seems to be a voice that leads me, that whenever I hear it and I say yes and amen to it, it takes me on a better story than I could concept myself in my own brain. And so I continue just to say yes and amen to that voice. And that has led me to seeing the world at least differently than the majority. I don't see it differently than everybody, but I do see it differently, it seems, than the average person. And I thought of this the other day of like, the way that I love to show people the way that I see the world. And I see the world in idiosyncrasies and in details, and through that, I'm able to capture it, and whenever I'm able to capture it and show it to others, I feel that's the way that I'm able to love and show the way that I love, is through that. And so that manifested itself into my first book was 30 public restrooms, did the update to 50 public restrooms recently, and Only Hands, not because I set out to make either of these, but because I was just out living my life, and I would go to restrooms because I'm human and I need to. And as I went into these restrooms, there were times where it was just like, this is art. The toilet paper laying on the ground and somebody's beer left on the back of the toilet and this graffiti that's around, like the whole scene just created, it captured me. So I would take a photo of it. And then after this repeated itself over time, I noticed, oh, I have a collection. And now that I have a collection, every time I went into a restroom, it was like, is this one also a part of the collection? And if it was, then I would take a photo. And so with both of these collections, it kind of, that's how they both manifested, was with Hands, I would go to an event and I would be hired, let's say, or I would just go myself and I would take photos, and I would take photos of what I see, and maybe over the course of an event I would take 100 photos, and 8 of them would be some people's hands doing things. And then you do that over and over again, and then I would notice, like, oh, one of the things that I'm interested in is hands. And so that collection started to create itself. And then once I recognized that, then it kind of snowballs, because then once it's in my brain, now I'm looking for hands doing weird and beautiful things. So both of these collections just came out of my own lived experience of being places and seeing the world and however God created me to see the world, and listening to that and not ignoring it, of walking into a restroom, having a feeling, but then saying yes to that feeling to take a picture. Seeing somebody holding a beer and some cigarettes and a lighter and some gummy bears, and then being like, that's beautiful, take a photo of that. And so that's kind of how both of these came about. I think in hands, that's what I've been thinking about a lot recently, just because I created this book most recently, and so everybody's been asking me questions about it, and so I now have all these things in my head. So why hands is a thing that I've been talking about, and the hands are an interesting subject because they're so expressive. I was talking to somebody at the bar last night, and I was telling him this, and he was like, what do you think is more expressive, like eyes or hands? And which was an interesting question, because, and as I was thinking about it, it's like eyes tell a lot more emotion than hands, but it's like a totally different expression. But hands are so expressive in themselves because there are so many things that we do with them. And what's fascinating to me is our hands are, other than our big, beautiful brains, they are what separate us from other creatures. We have this brain, which other creatures have, that has evolved to create a mind which is different than our brain, and our mind creates these egoic personalities that we embody, but the way that we live out those is through creation, and almost everything that we create is because we have opposable thumbs and these very dexterity, we have all this dexterity, and we can finesse things with our hands. And so as I've been thinking about this, that this literally is what I've been thinking of. Have you guys been to Center of the Universe and seen the giant artificial cloud sculpture? I think that's the best sculpture in Tulsa. It's because it's not designed by committee. It is a singular artist's vision that was able to be placed in a prominent place in our city, and that is so rare for something to be a single artist vision, paid for, planted, and now exists. But if you've ever paid attention to it, not only is it a cultural commentary on environmentalism, and that in the end all we're left is with this artificial cloud, but you'll notice there's cutouts on the side, and it starts with a whole bunch of human figures without hands, and then they grow hands, and then they just become hands as you go up. It's just hands. Then it goes to the other side, and those hands become airplanes. And then those airplanes become bombs and destruction, and then everything goes into chaos and turmoil. And that is such a beautiful thing to me. Well, it's a tragic but beautiful thing that's the story of us. The story of us is the story of our hands, because we are creatures with these minds and brains that are able to create, and because of our hands, we're able to create weapons of mass destruction, which then are our own downfall. Anyways, that's a side tangent that I was thinking about. But in relation to all that, we as creatures, we essentially are brains with hands, and we can use these hands to create, which we have. We're living in a built space right now. We're living in the built world, and the built world is so beautiful to me. And as a faith-based person, I believe that I'm a co-creator with the Creator to create the garden city of the future. And so I can choose to listen to my inner spirit and say yes and amen and create things that bring order to the chaos, or I can ignore that and I can create things that bring more chaos to the chaos. And I choose to be a person who I try to bring more order to the chaos through my handiwork. And so that's like 30,000 foot view of everything that I think about. But then as I was just going out to all these places and seeing people use their hands, it just became that there's all these micro stories that people are constantly telling. And I was thinking the other day that, like, even so there's your hands, but then each hand has fingers, and each of our fingers even tells a story, to the point where we now, to tell somebody that you're going to keep a promise forever, we use our pinky and we make a pinky promise. To tell somebody that we're going to love them forever and ever, we put a ring on our finger that has a vein connected to our heart, and that has become our ring finger that symbolizes one of the most beautiful things we can enter into. We have our middle finger that tells people that we are very displeased with their actions, or I love you, depending on what community you're in. And then you have your index finger, which is able to point out all of the things that you find beautiful, or give somebody directions, or all the things that we do with our index finger. And then our thumb, which is what separates us from almost every animal on the planet, and its opposability, and allows us to then create. But also you can catch a ride across the country. You can take the life of a gladiator, and also every finger itself has its own story and its own meaning within our, not only human lives, but human culture. Like, those are all cultural things that I just named. Like, we are humans who live in a culture, and in our culture we have created things that we do with each of our fingers. But so those are some things I've been thinking about.
May I ask you?
Yes, please. Take me on another direction.
No, this is wonderful. I have been the most curious about the environmental reaction to you taking photographs, because you are in public spaces.
Right.
Has anybody ever approached you and been like, "What are you doing in a bathroom taking photographs right now?"
Yeah. Well, typically, I'm alone in the bathroom because I don't want any people in the bathroom photos. So that one hasn't come up, except for literally last week. I was at Vanguard, and I really wanted to take a photo of these books laying out on the counter. And I did that, but there was boys in and out. It's during a concert, so it was what it was. And I took the photo, and this guy was like, "Bro, don't take photos in the bathroom. All the action is out here." And I was like, "No, it's not." And he was like, "No, come here. I got to show you." And he's so adamant that I come and take a photo of him and his group, like, out there at the concert, which is one of the most boring photos I could take. And like, just one of those internal, like, LOLs of, like I'm literally taking a photo of my book in the bathroom, and you're telling me don't take photos in the bathroom because it's boring in there, and I'm like, okay, whatever. But mostly nobody has approached me about taking photos in the restrooms. I've in some of the hand situations, it is. I mean, I have to be pretty bold because these are. I'm shooting these with a fixed lens, and I have to actually get as close as they seem as I am. I am that close. I'm not zooming in. I'm walking up to somebody and taking a photo. Most of the time, I'm in an environment where it isn't taboo for me to be doing that. But like if I'm hanging out at Mercury Lounge and I'm just in the smoke hole and I see something and I take their photo, there has on occasion just, they'll say something, but also I'm confident enough to be like, I don't actually do that, but I normally just talk my way out of it or whatever it is. There has been times on the street where it's not necessarily hands photos, but just being out, taking photos, and some people don't like that. But what do you say? I cut my chops or something. There's like a saying, but in New York, I was in New York. I became who I am as an artist in New York City, walking around, filming myself, taking photos, and in a place where you kind of just have to have that. And then whenever I translated that to Tulsa, there would be times where people would be like, "Don't take a fucking photo of me," and I'm like, I may say like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but like I can and I will," and I did. But there's been other times where. So what just came up was it was after Crybaby, and I was walking by one of the gas stations over on Houston Street, and there was a impromptu after party happening with a bunch of very young black guys, and I was confident enough to go hang and just kind of be with them, but then once I took a photo, it shifted and the tone had turned, and it was just like, why are you taking fucking photos? And in that moment, because of my own safety, it was like I showed it to him, and one of his buddies was like, no, that's a great photo. And he's like, no, delete it. And so I did. It's kind of like but then there's been other times where I'm out by Reds and everybody's super drunk and I take photos and I get berated, and it's just kind of like, and they're telling me that it's illegal, and I'm like, I very much know it's not, and I can just live my life and do that. So I don't know. To answer your question, it is a bit of like a risk situation socially. I know my rights legally, but knowing your rights legally doesn't mean anything socially. And so socially, you just have to be confident, and then if they have a problem with it, gauge each situation of, because I respect you, I'm going to delete this, or this is going to exist, and that's all there is to it. I'm sorry. I don't know. It depends on my mood.
From an old man's perspective,
Yeah.
It seems most of the photos are younger people. It seems most of them are
Right.
in that alternative sort of down and out world.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how that relates to the idea of creating order from chaos.
Right.
You're photographing the chaos to a large degree.
Right.
The one that stands out from that is, of course, the surgeon with the heart.
Yeah.
But I mean,
No, that is part of it for me. Of like, I am a pseudo pastor and work in the church, and a lot of the environments that I'm in aren't environments that most of the people who are church going folk go to, and they are confused by my presence there, but I see beauty there. And that's what these photographs are, is the beauty that I see there, and I see the beauty of the people there and the things that are happening. And regardless if the content of the photo is holy or Christian, or even if it is itself chaos, in that moment I saw something that was compositionally beautiful, or it was beautiful for whatever reason that it just happened. But so in that vein, yes, I am in a lot of environments that are seemingly more chaos, and my photography, I hope to bring order within that and showcase moments of beauty within that and moments of humanity in that, that bring people to see something that they're pushing arm's length away and showcase the humanity of it and maybe bring it a little bit closer to their heart, in that regard. And then mentioning the surgeon with the heart, that is it is a wild moment of my life, that this photo here, which very much looks like a heart, is actually a large tumor. And so that is a tumor that they took out of my mom. It was up here in her neck and her chest. A non-malignant, slow-growing tumor that had been growing for many years, and it was causing like asthmatic symptoms in her, and so they never actually did a scan. They were just like giving her inhalers and medicine and all these things. But then finally, it like started to show and be able to feel it, and then they did a scan, and they were like, "Holy, let's get you into surgery immediately." So she suffered for a lot longer than she needed to, but so thankful that medical or modern medicine exists. And
were you in the operating room?
I wasn't in the operating room, but whenever they were done, I asked them if I could take a photo, and they were like, "Sure," and said, "Come here." So.
How did your mom react to it?
She doesn't love it. She was here on opening night, and that was like, she didn't know I printed that photo, and she's embarrassed by it. But this was a little bit of a process for her of like being thankful for it, and like she doesn't love that she had a tumor and it got taken out, and that's an embarrassing thing for her. But then also to see the other side of, there was a surgeon able to take this out of you, and that in itself is beauty, and the beauty of that healing hand that was available. So I think that this project in itself, I think, was a little bit of growth in that too.
So do you always like walk out the door with your camera? Because you might have a slow night, you never know.
Right.
You might have like, are you always like camera?
I try to. It comes in waves and seasons, but I definitely I have a little satchel, and I have that camera in it, and it is beat up because I carry it 24/7, and so yes, always having a camera on me is something big. Luckily, we live in 2025, and the camera that we have on our phones is incredible. And so there's literally never a time where I don't have a camera on me, because I mean, I don't have my phone. But yes, I try to always carry my photography, the tool that I feel captures the images in the way that I want to share them. I try to have that on me all the time. One of the stories that I did want to tell was the story of crystal meth. One of the prints over there is the second time that I saw crystal meth, which allows me the opportunity to tell one of the best stories of my life. I can't find it in here, but the second time I saw crystal meth was at Mercury Lounge, and I was just sitting in the smoke hole, and this guy, he was like, "Oh my God, that's meth." And the excitement that rose up inside of me as I was grabbing my camera, and I was like, "Where?" It's like, whenever things like that happen, of like, when else, I'm not a person who's around crystal meth in my normal life. So when somebody says that's crystal meth, I got so excited to take a photo. So I took the photo that is up there on the wall. But the first time that I saw crystal meth was right here, right across from the BOK Center. There is a big parking lot, and it was a few years ago. I was walking across that parking lot, and I was like maybe the length of this room away from a guy, and he goes, "Hey man, are you a good citizen?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a good citizen. Are you a good citizen?" He's like, "I am." And he's like, will you talk with me? I'm lonely and I just need somebody to talk to." And I was like, "Sure." Like, "I'll talk with you." So we walk down Cheyenne across the railroad tracks that way, and we walk for, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks together, and no memory of what we talked about, but we get over that direction, and he's like, "Man, thanks. I'm going this way." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going this way." And he's like, "Thanks so much for talking to me. I appreciate that. I like really needed just to chat." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." He's like, "Can I give you something? Can I give you a gift?" I'm like, "Sure." And so he like rumbles around in his pocket, and he holds out his hand like this, and I hold out my hand, and he drops it, and there's this like little shard of glass, and I'm like, "What's this?" And he goes, "It's ice." And I don't know what that is. And I'm like, "What's ice?" And he's like, "Oh, it's crystal meth." And I'm like, "Holy shit, I am holding meth right now. This is insane." I pull out my phone. I take a photo of my hand. That should probably be one of the prints of like my hand with this little shard of meth in my hand. And so I'm just like, I take a photo, and then I turn back to him like, "Hey man, thanks so much for this. I appreciate it. I don't do meth. I'm gonna give it back to you." And he's like, "Are you sure? It'll make you a sexual giant." And I'm like, tempting, but no thanks. I don't do meth. And gave it back to him, and he was like, "Thanks. Actually, thank you for giving this back to me. I can sell this now and make a little bit of money off of it." He's like, "That's actually how my wife and I we support ourselves. Is I sell meth." And he goes, "And what's wild is," he's like, "I used to be completely addicted to crystal, but now I'm so addicted to porn, I don't do meth anymore." And that blew my mind. That porn saved this man's life. And then it takes a darker turn, because he's like, and since I'm so into porn, I don't need my wife so much anymore, so I just pimp her out and I sell meth, and that's how we support each other. And that was a wild moment in my "Are you a good citizen" life. Yeah. And I told every person that I ran into for the next 3 weeks that story. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that was a wild moment.
I really appreciate your speaking earlier of moving from chaos into order, because that's exactly how I see my work. My work is, for the most part, found object assemblages, and I just pick up junk off the street and in the dirt and so forth, and make beautiful things
Yeah.
out of it. And it reminds me, most people wouldn't know the name of Johannes Kepler, an early astronomer from 1500s. And so people, at one time, somebody asked him, "Why are you doing what you're doing?" And his response was so beautiful. He said, "I'm merely thinking God's thoughts after him." Merely thinking God's thoughts after him. And,
Yeah, I love that.
and that's the best way we can think of our work as artists. And matter of fact, that's the best way that anybody in any work can think of their work, right?
Yeah.
Thinking God's thoughts after him, because after all, he is the author of all thinking, and the author of all being, and the author of all creation and all creativity.
Yeah. I believe that wholeheartedly.
So how did you get into photography? Did you just wake up one day and say, "I'm going to try this," or was it a natural progression from taking I don't know, photos of film photography in the 90s?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always been a part of my life. My earliest memory of photography was my dad was an entrepreneur, and so he always had businesses. And he bought, I don't remember what year it was, but way back in the day, he bought one of the first digital cameras, and it took floppy disks. And so you would put a floppy disk in it, and you could fit like 13 to 14 photos on each 3.5-inch floppy. So it was like digital film almost, where you just like pop in, take 13 photos, take it out. And so, and they were so gracious with their stuff and their kids, where even though this was like $1,000 camera back in whatever year, he let me use it. And it wasn't like a precious object to him. And so I have photos of me as like a 12-year-old with this big floppy disk camera around my neck and taking photos at Easter. And I remember taking, like, even today, I could go back and show you a couple like photos that I know were like one of the most proud photos that I took of like, this is art, this is artistry at 13, 14 years old, that I took with that camera. But it was around that like coming of age 12, 13 that I like got into this type of stuff. And I was just super blessed that my public school had a videography class in 8th grade, and I took that as an elective. And that I went from being sold out that I was going to be an astronomer when I grew up to like I could not stop making videos, taking photos, making designs because of that class. And it just shifted to where that was all I did every day. Would go home, make a video, go back, show my teacher, and my teacher would be like, that's great, Cody, I would change this or that. And then I would get angry because I just wanted him to say that he loved it. And then I would go make another video and bring it back, hoping that there wouldn't be a critique. But yeah, so it's been as a young age that I started photography. And photography in the church is also something that has been a part of me, because that elective class I took in 8th grade led to a year later, 2 years later, my youth pastor at the church asking me if I wanted to make videos for the youth group. And so I started making videos for the youth group that I still have. I could show you the horrible videos that I made, but he allowed me to do it. And that snowballed into my senior year of high school, that church calling me and asking me if I wanted to be a part of staff full time to do the creative stuff for the whole church. And I said yes to that. So my senior year of high school, I took senior English on block schedule, so every other day for an hour and a half, and all the rest of my time I had work release to go work full time doing my art in the church. And then did that for 2 years, and then moved to Tulsa to start City Church, which is where I'm at now. So all comes from that public school elective class of videography. I can trace it back to.
Yeah. Do you ever edit any of your photos, or are they just what's on your camera?
I edit for exposure, but I don't manipulate. Okay. Yeah. So all of these photos, there's one bathroom photo where I edited out my face in the mirror. That would be the only manipulation that I did in that one. And then there's nothing in hands that is manipulated other than just exposure adjustments later. But yeah. Any other questions that yeah?
Just a little reflection.
Yeah.
I was delighted to see you and Laura on Channel 6. But it set me back a little bit when it led out with public bathrooms. We're talking about a Christmas show here. He's leading with public bathrooms.
Yeah, that would be the artist that I am, for sure. I lead with public bathrooms. Merry Christmas.
You're like, it doesn't get more real than
yes,
public restroom.
right.
When we're talking about
Yeah.
show.
Which that's something that like that I haven't talked about, of like with restrooms for me, like there is like the just the aesthetic piece of it, but the other part of it too is like us as human animals, we have to use the restroom, and restrooms are intimate spaces, and also happen to be some of the most disgusting places in our built world, and that is a fascinating thing to me, that like every single one of us has to use a restroom multiple times a day, and yet in a lot of public spaces they aren't treated with the intimacy in which they are for. And so there's that, and like a quote that I've held on to for a lot of my adult life is, you can tell how much somebody cares about their customers by their restroom. And it's like if you go into a place that it's like it's built out beautifully and they have this great restaurant or whatever, but then you go into the restroom and it's just second thought and disgusting and all, like that's actually how they feel about you, is the way that they treat that. And so that's fascinating to me. But then also because it is an intimate space, it allows for self-expression. And so that becomes really interesting to me, because you're alone in this public place where you're able to share your personality through writing on the walls. And there's like essentially this thought that it could be one of the most pure expressions of writing on the bathroom wall could be one of the most purest expressions of art, because it isn't commercialized. There's no way you can make money from that. It isn't for your own personal gain. It is for an expression, and then the next person after you gets to add to that expression, and it becomes a public art piece in almost every restroom that you go into that's not a 5-star restaurant.
They seem to tend toward the obscene.
Right.
So,
But then I think that would lead to like, why is the obscene what people want to express? And it's like that's the nature of it. It's like, would I rather live in the future garden city of the world where the obscenity isn't even a thought to express? But that's not where we're at. We live in this cultural context where the obscenity is what's on the surface. And so why is the obscenity there? Which then I think we would get into a whole conversation about wealth, income inequality, and all kinds of things. So.
Kind of funny how humans, we've been doing that forever. Caves.
Right.
And it's like this thing that we just can't help but like.
Yeah.
Right on a wall, like in the bathroom. I've been tempted. I don't think I've done it. I don't know. There might have been some times maybe I didn't. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of funny, or like just wanting to do it, and like you said, add to it. I just feel like we've been doing that for so long. It's just kind of in us in a way. We can't help it.
Yeah, it's just like I think immortality, eternity is part of ourselves, and we want to live on. We want to be remembered. And so like that first cave paintings, I like, it made me like tear up the first time I saw photos of the inside of that cave with all of those people's hands, and like they're Neanderthals. Like that's not even like they weren't even Homo sapiens yet. Like they were Homo neanderthalis, and like still had that innate drive to want to put their signature. And everybody did it. Everybody put their signature on this wall of like, I was here. And that's so beautiful to me, that these humanoid creatures that we have become, like we've always wanted to say, I was here, and leave that as a mark. And I think that's what even today, then in our public restrooms, we go and all these markings are to say, I was here, I existed, please notice me.
in a big city, if you're a stranger in a big city, you have no reason to be in a building, but you gotta go, right? You just gotta go, and you can't find any place to do that.
Right.
That is, it's very disturbing.
So yeah, that also gets into inequality because you only have access to a restroom if you have the means to access a restroom. Because in America, we just do not prioritize free public restrooms at all. And so, like I mentioned, living in New York, it's like I made like an actual mental map of New York of where I was and how close to a restroom I could go use, and be like, okay, we're about to travel there. Let's go a couple blocks this way because I need to use the restroom real fast before we end up traveling wherever we're traveling. And most places you have to spend money, and it's just like that is a huge privilege to even, and it shouldn't be a privilege to have a place to use the restroom, but in America it is. Yeah.
Are you thinking about expanding to 100 public restrooms?
I do. My plan is that this will be the final form of this book, that this is 50 public restrooms, and my next one of this series will be 50 more public restrooms. And so this one will live as it is, and then next restroom book will be 50 more public restrooms. And then I have a lot of life to live, hopefully, and so maybe there'll be a third and a fourth and a fifth edition. And then maybe whenever I die, there will be a retrospective, and it'll be 400 public restrooms. And
You know, I don't know why I've noticed this, but you could read 1,000 novels or watch 1,000 movies or TV shows and nobody's ever using the restroom.
yeah, yep, yep. And nobody says bye on the phone either. We don't have time for that in our story. Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? I'm going to be respectful of time. We're almost at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which book do you think you were more excited to make or like have finished?
Well, that one's a hard one because the restroom book was my first one, and shout out to Big Fish at Mercury Lounge because he pushed me to do it. And I had this collection going for a while, and I had told him about it, and he just like looked me in the face and he's like, you got to do it. And I was like, you're right, I got to do it. And so like a few weeks later I did it and I had it done. And so the restroom book, being my first one, holds a lot of weight for me. And also the first version, 30 public restrooms, I did 50 copies and sold out of them so quickly, which was like, I really thought that I was gonna lose money, and like I don't price them to where I'm making much money. And so it's like I have to sell them in order to not lose. And it was so cool to like put that out there and see that there were people who actually liked it and wanted it and bought it, and some people bought multiple copies and were like giving them away. So I love that. I think Only Hands is I'm more proud of this one in some regards because it's a more expressive collection and it's a much larger collection. So whenever I decided to do this, would shout out to Laura because I had been wanting to do this. I had been collecting this for a long time. I had over 400 photos in the folder, and it wasn't until she asked me to be a part of this gallery that it gave me the drive to like, okay, that's what I want to do. I'm going to do that, and buckled up and sat down and made this happen. And whenever I started to actually curate the collection down, all of the themes of these different pages started to emerge and come out, and I just love how fun this book is to look through because of each individual photo tells its story, but then like I randomly just like this page is purses, and to be able to like go through my 400 photos, select the best of the best, but then be like, oh, all of these people are like handling purses, and all of these people are handling Miller High Lifes, and all these people are holding multiple things. And I think that there's parts of this that I just am very proud of, the large collection that I was able to curate into each individual photo telling a story, but then using my curatorial skills to tell a story within the story is cool. So loved to be able to express that. Long-winded answer, but yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Appreciate it.